So I wanted to make a video about something that's kind of important I've been seeing come up a lot, not only with other authors in the space, but also on my own platforms with what I'm trying to accomplish with fiction. And the question is whether or not you should finish a series that's not performing very well. And part of this question is I've seen a lot of authors creating flounce posts. So if you don't know, a flounce post is when you announce to a group, I'm leaving. I can't cut it. I hate all of this crap, and it's all so hard. I'm not cut out to be an author, and they give up. And then they get a lot of feedback and encouragement, telling them not to give up. And then they're like, okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to stay. And part of this problem is if you are creating something and you don't know who's going to buy it, or if you've created some stuff that you care about and you're really passionate about, but it doesn't sell, it can be really frustrating. And part of the frustration is we are taught as a culture since modernism in the late 19th century to believe that if you build it, they will come. If you are passionate about something, if you listen to the muse, like if you are enthused by the divine or the divinities of creativity or whatever, then your work has value. Like that's the way to make valuable work, is to build the things with that enthusiasm. But that's not actually the case. That's not how business works. Business works because there are people who want things, and the failure or success of your project is going to be based on how many people like the thing that you've bought, so that you've made. So if you write a book and you are excited about it, but nobody else really gets it, it's going to be hard to sell. So what most authors do is they gradually figure out why people don't like those books and what kind of books they can write to make more money. And that's a good thing. It's not selling out to write more books that more people like. It's not devaluing art or literature or the lowest common denominator, which is another term I really hate, because you're basically saying, if you believe that kind of stuff, you're saying that 95% of the book reading public are idiots and they don't appreciate quality. And I write quality, therefore I'll never make it as an author because the world is a screwed up place. That's a limiting negative belief that if you latch onto that, you're just going to end up jaded and cynical and unpopular, unsuccessful. And that's fine. If you believe in the work and you enjoy the rewards of creating stuff that you think is good, and you don't care about making any money with your writing or getting nice reviews or whatever, that's all fine. But it's really nice to create stuff that people like and that people buy, and so that you have money coming in. Then you can make more stuff that more people like. It's nice to do that. So to this question specifically, whether or not you should finish a series that you've started, the problem is generally your first books may not be very good, and you'll be getting better. So the more you write, the more you'll be able to figure out how to write better, how to build better products that more people enjoy. So you may have started a series that doesn't sell very well. Maybe, it was one of your first series. Maybe you thought it was a really good idea, but it never really came together. Maybe the first time you launched it, you had an ugly cover. You didn't have a great blurb. So maybe now 5 years later, you're thinking about rebranding it, revising it with a new cover, with a new blurb, doing some advertising, and that's all fine. But the question is, should you spend, 3 to 6 months writing a sequel to a book that's not popular, that's not selling? And that's a problem, because some people will say, some readers wait until there's a whole series finished. A lot of readers, if they only see one book, they won't buy it anyway. So you may not see success until the series is finished, until you can finish the series with a box set, because then you can spend a lot on advertising by having that box set, the higher priced product at the end of your funnel. However, you're always going to have the problem if the first book isn't converting readers and they're not enjoying it. People aren't going to read the second or the third book. So what you want to test out, first of all, is conversion on the first book. You need to make that first book sell as well as you can, and figure out if you can make some money. So you can estimate potentially like a 20% read through, which means if people buy or read the first book, hopefully 20% of them will buy or read the second book. So you can decide whether to make that first book perma-free. When your series is finished, putting the first book up perma-free is smart business. You're giving it away for free, but you make more money on the back end with the rest of the series. But if that first book doesn't satisfy readers, it's not going to work perma-free. So it's a good test. If you put the first book as perma-free and you can't get anyone to download it, you can't get anyone to like it or review it, that's probably not going to be a very popular series. even if you finish the series, even if it's like, even if the third book is really good because you're a better writer now, that first book is always going to be a problem. And you can go back and rewrite the first book, or at least the first chapter, and make sure people get into it. But that's something that you want to test. For example, if that first book is selling $100 a month, then maybe if you write the second book, it'll make $20 a month. And if you write a third or fourth book, hopefully the 20% read through will keep going, although it usually drops. But if that first book is making, if the first book is making $1,000 a month, it's also common that more popular books tend to have a higher read through. So like my first, I haven't finished any series yet, and the one sequel that I have book 1 and book 2, they sell about the same amount, and partly that's because, you know, generally book 1 is cheaper than book 2. I think I have my book 1 at $2.99 and my book 2 at $3.99. So even if the read through is less, the earnings can be more, because once you've proven the value, you know, the first book is a hard sell because they don't know who you are. They don't know what this story is. But if they've read book 1 and they want book 2, price doesn't matter that much because they want this story. So they're not price sensitive. So that's partly why, even if your read through is down, you can make more money on the back end. And if you have a longer series, like maybe book 1 is $2.99 and you charge $3.99 for the other 3 to 5 books in your series, generally longer series perform better these days with shorter content. So rather than, for example, rather than writing my 90 to 120,000 word novels that I've been writing in 2018, I really want to start writing shorter, not really serials, but rather than like one big novel with a firm, satisfying ending, it would be a 50K story that ends on a cliffhanger and goes into the next book. And then I would have 5 to 7 50K stories rather than 3 90K stories. That's, on the one hand, that's something that some readers say they don't like because they want a satisfying story. On the other hand, that's what sells. That's what performs the best. There's a difference between what readers tell you they like and what they will actually vote for with their wallet, what they'll pay for. So if you can hook their attention in 50K, and you have a paywall, which just means if you want to read more of the story, you have to buy the next book. If they want the story, they're not going to complain about paying. They're only going to complain about story or complain about paying if they don't want it very much, or if you don't give them enough to satisfy them. And they're still going to complain. So like, even if you satisfy them with book 1, especially like if it's a free book and they have to pay for book 2, some readers don't like paying for things and they may complain, you know, oh, I hate this marketing tactic where, you know, authors give away free books but then they charge for other stuff, as if, and there's this thing where a lot of readers think authors do it for the love and the passion, and we should be thankful if anybody reads our book. Like, that's our own reward, is that people download and read our book, and we shouldn't worry about earnings. So there's this weird thing where some readers don't like to pay for books and they don't like authors who want to make money from their books. But if you're an author, you can't try to make all your readers happy. You have to also educate them that this is your job. This is what you do for a living. This is how you make a living. And unless people are buying your books, you can't spend the time doing it. Another objection to whether or not you should finish a series is that some authors feel an obligation to their readers. So maybe, you know, your first readers, your fans, they supported you. They liked that first book. You owe it to them to finish the series. That's what a lot of authors will think, even if it's an unpopular series. But that kind of means you're working for free to satisfy, you know, some people out there, and you don't owe people free stuff. You don't have to make stories like just because they're like the first book. If there's only 100 people on your list, or 100 people who want a sequel to a book that's not selling very well, even if you finish that book, you sell 100 copies, it took you 3 months to write, you could be writing that sequel that isn't ever going to sell well, because if book 1 isn't selling well, the sequels are never going to sell very well. Or you could be writing something totally new. Like maybe you know now why that book doesn't sell. You could learn from your mistakes and relaunch a totally new project. I always think you want to be working on your best work, your best content that's going to satisfy more readers. And I feel like I sound kind of like a jerk when I say things like, I don't care about my readers, which of course isn't true. But what I mean is I can't live my life trying to build content for a small handful of people based on the mistakes that I've made in the past. I always want to be working on my best work. I want to reach more readers and give them better quality work than I've done before. And this is a problem because part of the way that I've launched serials, and part of what I set out to do when I started publishing fiction, was to map out 10 potential series with a series starter, and before I focus on any of them. And that's probably a mistake because some of my series do really well. So while they're doing really well, I should have finished books 3 and 4 and put up a box set while they were doing well because I had hungry readers who were ready to read the next book. But I didn't do that. I've been working on other projects, or I've been trying to finish. This year I've been trying to go back and finish those other books that I started. And that is kind of the same thing. I put out kind of half books of 50K, and now I'm going back and finishing the full novels. But, it takes a long time to write a novel. So even though I finish 3 to 6 books a year, that's not fast enough for a lot of readers. And I get a lot of negative comments and reviews that say things like, I love this book was amazing, but I'm never going to read this author again because he makes me wait too long, or he's juggling too many projects, or he's not, committed to finishing one series, so I don't know if he's ever going to finish anything. And on the one hand, it sucks to get reviews like that, and I'm learning, yes, I need to write faster, and I need to focus on one series at a time. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go back. Like, I can't please all of my readers, and I have a lot of stuff started now, so I can't go back and finish my least popular book for the readers who want it, rather than working on my most popular books that are going to make a lot more money. It's a difference of, spending 3 months and earning $1,000, or spending 3 months and earning $10,000 or $20,000, because if you're writing something that's more popular, you're going to make a lot more money. So you would be voluntarily taking a huge income deficit, like you'd be losing tons of money to try to satisfy everybody. And I do want to go back and finish all the books I've started, and I hope that I will do that. On the other hand, it'd be easier for me to focus on more books if I boosted my income first. And the way to boost my income, I know now, is to write more popular books. And I know what's more popular because I've already written 5 novels now, and I kind of can guess what will sell better. I can design them better. I can brand and launch them better. I can do all these things better. So rather than going back and finishing the series, which were like my first 5 or 6 series that I mapped out when I started writing fiction, I could put those on pause, and I could spend this year writing a whole new series, which makes a significant amount of money. And I'll be reaching new readers. Like, on the one hand, you're kind of pissing your fans off because they have to wait for so long and they've read your books. On the other hand, and again, this sounds really crass, but there are more fish in the sea, which just means there are millions of potential readers for your books. I want to reward my readers for being fans, and I do that by giving them most of my books for free anyway. So they know that, I'm slow and I have lots of projects, but they're not really paying for my work anyway. In most cases, I'm giving them my books for free. And I'm learning, as I go. I'm making this up as I go. People assume that writers just, should be amazing at doing everything the first time around. And with self-publishing, they're increasingly coming to expect that writers will crank out books and they'll finish a series, in 6 months, they'll have a whole series done. And that's difficult. It's hard to write books. It's difficult to write that quickly. It can be done, but it's not something that most people can do. And most traditionally published books take a year. So it's not inconceivable to wait a year between books. If a sequel comes out in a year, that's not actually a big deal, but I'm still getting negative reviews because readers are having to wait too long for the books that I put out in the past. So to sum up, I know this is kind of a controversial topic. I'm not absolutely sure that I'm in the right, but my advice would be, don't finish a series just because you started it. There's no medal for perseverance. So just because you persevere and finish something because, you said you were going to start it, and by darn, you're going to finish. There's no reward for finishing something that was based on, not a bad idea, but an incomplete idea when you were beginning writing and you didn't really know what you were doing. There's no reward for that. Even if you have a small audience, even if you have a big audience, you don't owe them your work. You don't have to make your publishing decisions based on your readership. You should always be learning as you go, and improving your ideas and focusing on building the best thing. Like, what's the most popular, what's the best thing I can write right now? What's the most successful project? Or even what book could I write that would make more money right now than the other stuff? Don't be afraid to pause. Like, if you can't sell book one, it's probably not a good idea to finish the whole series. And this is also why I disagree with the common publishing advice where you should wait. You should write a whole series and you shouldn't publish until you have a whole series done, so that you can do a quick release strategy of releasing one book every 3 weeks or one book every 6 weeks, so that you always have one book in the hot new release lists. That can work if you're an experienced author with a backlist or with an audience who has really good books with really good covers, and you do everything right the first time. That can totally work. That can be a smart publishing choice. But if you're a new writer and you don't have an audience and you don't know whether or not anyone's going to write this book, finishing a whole series before you test the first book is probably a mistake, because you might end up with a whole series that never sells, doesn't make any money. That's why personally I've tried to focus on launching shorter projects. So even, a 15 or 20K series sample starter that I give away for free to see if anybody's interested in this idea. If you can't get them invested or hooked in the first 5 chapters, if you can't make them want to keep reading the first 5 chapters, book one doesn't really matter. And this is a problem. I see a lot of authors who write a book and it doesn't get interesting, until halfway, or like they say, well, you have to read to the end to get it. Like, most people, they'll read the first few pages. If they're not invested in the first few pages, they'll give up on your book. So you want to be thinking, how can I validate my ideas faster, by publishing smaller samples, or putting up, the first chapter for free, or anything like that, before you commit a significant amount of your time and energy writing a whole series that maybe nobody wants. So if you're not sure what to write, or you're not sure which series to write, or if you have another idea for a series, I also hear the same question asked, like, I get really excited about my new ideas, so I don't finish my old ideas. There is a problem with switching around too much with shiny object syndrome. You do have to finish something, but you don't have to finish like a whole first book. You can finish the first 5 chapters, you can finish the first half, and publish something. You don't want to get distracted always and continue never finishing anything. You have to finish something and put it out. And writing is not always fun and easy. You shouldn't always. I see a lot of authors giving up or quitting because they think, oh, writing is hard, or I don't want to learn how to plot, or how to get better at my writing, or whatever, or like it's not fun. I hate people. A lot of pantsers, which are people who write by the seat of their pants, they enjoy the process of writing, so they enjoy the writing part, but they never finish anything because they have problems with structure. So when they get stuck in the middle, they don't know how to fix it, or they end up with like a messy manuscript. Not necessarily. I know a lot of pantsers who do ridiculously well because they write really good stories. But if you're having trouble finishing, or your books aren't selling, then I think you need to invest some time to learn about plotting and story architecture, because that's probably the missing link that's going to really help you the most. But if you finish a book, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to sell that first book. So, make sure the cover is good, make sure the blurb is good, and make sure you have enough reviews. If you don't have 20 or so, at least, reviews, you're always going to have a problem. But then, do some advertising, make sure that book sells at least adequately well, or can sell, or has some potential. Make sure that people like it. Otherwise, I don't think it's a good idea to commit to, writing book 2 or book 3 just because some of your readers enjoyed that book and they want more, because you can probably give them a better book. You can probably give them a new series that's even better, and you can let them know that you still plan to. You can let them know you still plan to finish that series later, but you're so excited about this other idea that's so amazing and they're really going to love it. Like, you have to talk them up. You have to convince them to shift, because they don't necessarily want to. They've gotten into one story. They don't want a new, different story. They want to keep going with those characters. But again, you can't base your business decisions on your readers. You have to respect them. You have to tell them what's going on, and you have to value their feedback, and let them know that you really care about giving them something that they enjoy. But you can say, that's why I'm writing this new series, because I made some mistakes with my first series. Even though I think it's pretty good, even though I hope you liked it, I'm gonna take a break from it because I'm really excited about this other new idea and I can't wait to share book one with you. And then you can juggle series. I'm doing too many. I'm doing like 10 different series and I have too many new ideas all the time. And I can't keep them all going quickly. I would have to, even if I write, a book a month, I could only add a new book to my different 10 series every year. So that's not the best thing to do. I'm going to try to focus on some series and getting them done and putting out one series faster. On the other hand, now I have 2 years of experience. When I started publishing 2 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to learn quickly from my mistakes, but I've gained invaluable experience that allows me now to with much less frustration and difficulty to publish books that sell. I can write a new series quickly that will make a lot of money and will sell, and my audience will love it because of what I've learned putting out lots of books in the last couple of years. So I'm not doing everything perfectly. I'm making a lot of mistakes. I would argue that that's good for me. I'm doing that intentionally so that I can fail quickly and I can learn how to do it better. So I'm not saying that my mistakes are bad or that I wouldn't do it the way I'm doing it, even though I think most authors are skeptical about doing things the way that I'm doing it. And it's true that a lot of readers, they don't like it. A lot of readers, I get negative reviews for these reasons. But for me, it's more valuable to do the system that I'm doing because I learned the experience and I'm writing more books that sell and make more money faster. That's more valuable to me than worrying about a handful of negative reviews I get on my books. And also, the negative reviews that say things like, I love this book is amazing, I'm only angry that I can't get the sequel, that's a really positive review. Even if that's a 1-star review, that's still a positive review. People are going to buy that book because they'll think, oh, if this was good enough that people want, or if people are unhappy that they can't keep reading, that's a big win for me. Even though I don't want to take pleasure in my audience being unhappy with me, even though, I never want my readers to be angry or upset with me, that's still a win. That's still a win because I'm writing books that are good enough that readers want more books and they're angry that I don't have more books for them. And you're always going forward. So I may piss some people off right now, but in 2 years, when I finally have some really successful, some really positive, long series finished, and they're the right kind of books, and they're making lots of money, I'll be reaching new readers easier. It'll be easier for me to sell more books with less marketing, with less advertising. It'll be easier for me to make more money from Kindle, and I can spend more time making more content that my readers love. So even though my readers are pissed at me, I'm kind of doing it for them because I'm doing everything I can to give them my best work and make sure that I'm producing my best work. And what I've built in the past, that's not my best work. I can get better. I can give them better quality books. So anyway, this is kind of a convoluted video, but I hope that answers some questions. If you're on the fence about whether or not you should finish the series, sometimes that's a sign of frustration where you feel like, why should I spend more time writing a book that no one's reading or no one's buying, or, it's not making me any money. Why should I keep working for free and not get paid? And sometimes you just need permission to not do that. You can not do that and you can write something else that makes more money, learn from your mistakes. Whereas a lot of other people will tell you, you have an obligation to your readers, you have to start what you finish, you have to finish the series. That's not necessarily true, and it may not even be a good idea. So that's my 2 cents on it. I may or may not be right. My strategies are controversial, but they're also working reasonably well for me. So I'm doing things intentionally, even though they piss some people off. And it's also worth pointing out, doesn't mean I'm writing shitty books. I don't get reviews that say, these are shitty books written to market. I get reviews that say this book was amazing, but I don't like the way he's marketing. I still have to write high quality fiction, high quality content that satisfies readers. There's no real step around that, but it's much easier to do that if you learn what satisfies readers, if you know how to build the kind of stories that readers are responsive to. And that's as easy as researching the market, researching the keywords, the categories, reading all of the other bestsellers. I read 5 or 10 books, well, maybe 5 books a month. I read as many young adult best-selling sci-fi and fantasy books as I can to see what people are doing, to see what's out there. because I can model that. And it doesn't mean I'm copying or cloning. I'm making completely new stories that still have some basic elements that all the bestsellers are using. And I can only do that by doing it intentionally, by doing it because I want to satisfy more readers, not because I want to listen to my muse and do what's pleasurable to myself or write the kind of books that I enjoy. I also hugely enjoy my books, and I love the writing process, and it's rewarding and frustrating and challenging. So it's not like I'm just a marketing hack who's hacking the system of publishing fiction. But at the same time, I don't consider my books high quality in the sense that even though I have a PhD in literature, I don't focus on the writing quality. I focus on telling great stories that paint pictures in readers' heads, and I'm pretty good at structuring my stories well. I could do a lot of things better, and I could have much cleaner, much better written. If that's like I don't like the idea of and I'm going off on a tangent, but the idea that there's a difference in quality, and that better quality books means a better written book, because that's almost never true. Higher quality stories are always better than higher quality writing. Like it's if you have to choose between one of the two, I would always rather take a really poorly written high quality story over a really boring story that's beautifully written, because a high quality story will always sell better and always outperform, and it will make more readers happy. Anyway, so that's a conclusion of this video that I hope will be helpful to some of you who are thinking about whether or not you should continue writing a series.